Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
For the News and Observer, I'm Vaughan, your host for this episode of Under the Dome for the week of Monday, November 7th, 2022. I'm joined today by my colleagues Luciana, Perez, Uribe, Guinassi, and Danielle Battaglia, who have been reporting on the U.S. Senate race. Danielle from D.C., since she's our congressional reporter, and Luciana here on our politics team in North Carolina. Folks, we are here. It's actually happening. If you're listening to this on Monday, polls open Tuesday morning. So let's talk about a different kind of poll. Danielle, recent polls show some North Carolinians don't know much about the race. So tell us 3 big things to know, or however many, 2, 5, to know about Democratic candidate Cheri Beasley and Republican candidate Ted Budd. And those of you who already know who they are, you can just listen to our recap.
It makes me sad that people don't know who they are for how much I've been covering them. But I'd say 3 things to know about Ted Budd. He's supported by former President Donald Trump, which really gave him a leg up in the primary. It basically pushed him ahead of his 2 opponents, Pat McCrory and Mark Walker. Why I couldn't think of his name. And then, I know, it was so long ago. And he has served as a representative over parts of the triad for 3 terms now. He's in his 3rd term, technically. He corrects me on that when I say that. And then Republicans desperately want control of the U.S. Senate race, the U.S. Senate. So getting that chamber is very important to them. And so maintaining what is currently Senator Burr, who is also a Republican seat, is very important to them. As for Cheri Beasley, she is formerly North Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice. She would be the first African-American elected from North Carolina to serve in the Senate, and only the 12th in the history of our country, which is amazing to me that there's only been 12. And securing that seat would mean that Democrats maintain control of the chamber, which is really important. So her getting that seat would help because right now there is a Republican in there. The control of the Senate right now is by 2 people, and those are independents who caucus with the Democrats. So they really want to maintain control.
Control of the chamber is also something at our state level, which we'll talk about maybe toward the end of the show since we recapped that last time. Luciana, you've been working with Danielle on the ground in North Carolina coverage of the U.S. Senate race and talking to voters. So what have you learned about the voters during the campaign season?
Hi, yeah. So the past few weeks, the past few months, I've been talking to a lot of voters going to Beasley and Budd campaign events across the state. And then most recently, I got to speak to a lot of voters in different counties for a kind of bigger project article that published today. So that's been interesting.
If you all haven't read it yet, go to newsobserver.com to read Luciana's coverage, all of our politics team coverage. We have a voter guide with candidate questionnaires, everything you need to know if you're not sure what you want to do tomorrow. So Luciana, where all did you and Will go? Not Will Doran, Will Wright, our colleague in Charlotte.
Yeah, so Will Wright and I went to 6 different counties, and those were Durham, Nash, Mecklenburg, Randolph, Robeson, and Scotland. And we basically went to these areas to talk to voters, to talk to politicians, to speak to the chairmen of the parties in those areas, and get a sense of what people cared about there and why they voted a certain way.
Durham, of course, is a deep blue local city and county here. Some of our listeners may not know about the other places, which was, of course, part of the reason that you all went to these different counties and talked to the voters there that aren't always in our N&O coverage. So what should listeners know about the other areas that you visited?
Yeah, so as Don said, Durham is, of course, deeply blue. Mecklenburg is, very blue as well. Then you have Robeson, that's been shifting red in recent years. And then you have Randolph, which is very, very, very red. And then Scotland and Nash are both purple, and they kind of switch around during elections in terms of, which party they opt for.
Can you explain a little bit where the Mecklenburg, of course, is near Charlotte, where those other counties are if someone's looking at a map and maybe isn't generally familiar with where you all went? Like, how far was your drive? How many counties did you pass? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to put the map in my brain right now. So I went to Randolph and Nash and Durham. So Randolph is toward the west, about an hour away from here, Wake County. And then Nash County is towards the east, about 50 minutes away from Wake.
So what all did you hear from them?
So the voters I spoke with mentioned really similar topics. So concerns about the economy, about abortions, as well as student loans, crime. So a lot of the topics we hear generally across our coverage. But what varied was their opinions on these topics, whether they thought there should be more, restrictions on abortions, less, what the correct approach to fixing some of them were.
Do you think it kind of fell along, typical party lines on these issues, or was it just depending on like who you talked to and how you asked?
So absolutely, it fell on party lines in these counties, depending on, whether they were very red, very blue. But then you always had the occasional surprise where a voter, in a deeply red county would be extremely in favor of Democrats. And then the purple counties, you found kind of a mixed bag.
Okay. When we talked about unaffiliated voters previously this year, I found the one unaffiliated voter that voted for Trump and Obama and Hillary. So a lot of people, it changes per election. So are we looking at unaffiliated voters as the big factor here?
Yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of the election results hinges on unaffiliated voters and where they ultimately fall on in terms of, their party affiliation, where they vote, as well as the turnout for some of the deeply red and deeply blue counties, whether people show up and go to the polls.
I've been looking at the early voting counts with our data reporter, David Rayner, and I described the unaffiliated turnout so far as the meh-ist of early voters, and that's basically how they're all pretty meh about getting out there early. We'll see if they turn out on Tuesday. So, Danielle, how close do you think the votes will be, counties and statewide, between Beasley and Budd?
I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I was listening to Do Politics Better this morning. They said 4%, and I'm hoping we get that high because, everyone expects at this point for Representative Ted Budd to win the seat, and I think that's probably right at this point. But I have PTSD from the Sherry Beasley-Paul Newby race, where she at one point only had 11 votes. Like she's had some stressful elections, and I covered that one. So I don't know. We have this whole pre-election, post-election plan that counts on somebody winning, and I think we need a plan B because I think it could be very close and we may not have results election night, but we'll see. Let's see if I get proven wrong.
So that's a good segue to how things might be at the end of election night for what I'll be focusing on Tuesday night. So thanks for adding to my stress tornado.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about stress tornadoes, I just came up with that, and our picks for headliner of the week. So we'll be right back.
It's not just something you made. It's the privilege that you get to work with your hands. It's building something that serves a purpose. Proof that you have the grit to keep going. At Timberland, we understand you take your craft seriously, and we do too, which is why our products are built to the highest quality. We put in the work so you can perfect yours, with purpose in every detail and crafted with intention. Timberland, built on craft. Visit Timberland.com to shop.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm News and Observer Politics reporter Dawn Vaughan, here with my colleagues Luciana, Perez, Uribe, Guinassi, and Danielle Battaglia out of DC. So before the break, we were segueing from top of ballot to the rest.
So, Dawn, what's leaving you so stressed on the rest of the ballot?
Nothing at all. Well, first of all, for those that we talk about, it's wild to think that state lawmakers are down ballot because it's so significant. But they are compared to the Beasley-Budd race. And even further down the ballot are all your local races. So again, I'll plug our voter guide, which our local government reporters have also worked on extensively, depending on what, in the triangle here, we have everything for Durham, Orange, Wake. And so we've got in Raleigh, the mayor, we've got Wake County commissioners, we've got a couple bonds on the ballot, there's sheriff. So check your local coverage that we have here in the triangle, or if you're listening from further out in the state, the coverage there. So, but in the middle of the ballot are 170 races, and it's control of the General Assembly. I've been writing a lot about that, about what kind of shifts we could see. And a month or so ago, I wrote the 3 scenarios of Democratic gains, Republican gains, which would mean potentially supermajorities in one or both chambers, or everything is the same, and it's just Groundhog Day at the next legislative session, which is that Republicans retain a majority in each of the chambers still. And there's a good chance that that's what it's going to be. It's pretty close, the gains that they would need to make in the Senate. Just 2 races to gain a supermajority. It's a little more uphill for House Republicans to do the same. Is it possible? Like all politicians like to say they have a path to victory for themselves, because of course you want to say that. So there are paths to victory in the House and the Senate for Republicans. And for Democrats, there's a path to preventing them to have as many victories as they would like. So again, obviously, none of us know. The stress tornado is the Tuesday night. We may not know the final control of the legislature because it's 170 races. There are several that obviously we already know. We know that, Durham politicians or Democrats are going to win again. We know that Senator Berger and Speaker Moore running unopposed, they're going to win. And a lot of other Republican leadership are running unopposed or in like easily won districts, so they'll be fine. But it's all the swing districts that we don't know about and how close they are. And those unaffiliated voters who are all, meh, I didn't feel like early voting. Do I feel like going on Tuesday? And sure, if you look at certain patterns, they're going to vote one way or another party-wise, but you still don't actually know until they come and, decide what they're going to mark. So I don't know what'll happen at the end of the night Tuesday. Maybe it won't end Tuesday night. Maybe we'll never sleep again.
I was just talking to one of our political scientists who always, tells us what's going on in the world. And he said he wouldn't be surprised if some of these tight races aren't decided till canvassing. Is that what you're thinking? Are you worried about that?
I'm hearing that there's going to be potential recount stuff, and we're not gonna know. So best laid plans and all, and so we'll just go into it thinking maybe we'll find out, and just be optimistically pessimistic, where if we find out, great, and I'll write that story, and if we don't find out, I'll write the story no matter what. So anyway, please continue to listen to listen and read all our coverage. So we are going to turn to our headliners of the week. I'll go first because it relates to exactly what we were just talking about. My headliner of the week are all those workers on Election Day. Thank you, public servants, for dealing with questions from reporters, questions from voters, questions from politicians, and everybody else who hassles you. We appreciate your work for our city, county, state, and country. So headliner of the week, Election Day workers, and maybe election week, month. We'll see. So Luciana, what's your headliner of the week, or who?
So mine is all the recent Twitter shenanigans, in particular the pay for verification. I think that's interesting because I think traditionally, the blue check mark has been a way for people to kind of recognize a more public-facing figure or someone who has some sort of name recognition. And now it seems that potentially with the Elon Musk takeover, it might be more of a way to just verify your identity, which could help limit bots. But I also think it'll take away a bit of, the other role of knowing, certain kind of important figures or public figures.
It'll be interesting to see if employers whose employees use Twitter, reporters, for example, will pay for it, or you pay for it personally. And what are you paying for? Is it enjoyable? Sometimes, maybe, sometimes not. I know you all love my legislative building tweet photos, but I don't know, we'll see how much Twitter is enjoyable beyond, I don't know. Today, as we're talking on Friday, reports last night said that, half of Twitter's workforce is being shown the door. So we'll see what they have to say.
I've lost over 30 Twitter followers since Elon took over, and I want to know where they're going.
Oh, I saw that too. Yeah. Well, part of it, I didn't, it could be bots. It could be people piecing out. Yeah. It could be, who knows? Yeah.
I've heard a lot of the Twitter workers are in California, and they have I think a 90-day rule that you have to give notification when you're going to fire them. So I'm wondering if that's going to play out in any way, in the court.
I wonder that too, because I saw in North Carolina something similar, and it's depending on the number of workers that you're getting rid of, you have to notify because of the impact to the economy. So,
and the sale's under federal investigation, so
things are always tied up in the courts. Oh, we didn't even, one more quick mention. Their Supreme Court races also on the ballot. We talked all about that last week, but don't forget that. See, there's a lot on your ballot, so check out our voter guide. Okay, I'm also excited about Danielle's headliner because I know what it is. Danielle, what's your headliner?
Yeah, and we also argued about this, and somehow Dawn's headliner still was way more magical than mine. But my headliner is Ruby, the Capitol Christmas tree that was picked out is not right, but cut down from Pisgah National Forest and is on its way. I think there's 18 stops or 16 stops before it comes to the Capitol grounds on November 18th. And I'm hoping to be there to see Ruby get put in place and decorated for the holidays, because if you know Dawn and I at all, we love the holidays and are very excited about this.
Danielle and I also both didn't know each other then, lived in Northern Virginia for a long time growing up. And I can tell you from what I learned then and what I've done when I visit my parents as an adult is that the U.S. Capitol tree, if you're a tourist or if you live there, is the tree to go see. The White House tree, sure, that's fine. But there's lots of lines. And the Capitol tree is just there on the lawn. You can get closer to it. It's just an amazing, magical, DC holiday experience. So
we were going to see it together last year, but then I had a COVID exposure at the Capitol and I had to cancel, and I was so sad.
Yes, this is a much more optimistic holiday season than previous ones around the country. So yay, holidays are coming up. We can look forward to that, at least to dissipate our post-election stress coverage and everything else. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening today. I'm Dawn Vaughan here with Danielle and Luciana. We'll talk to you next time after the election. Bye.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.